Thank you very much, Professor Szilágyi, dear professors, dear colleagues. My task was to say some words about the federalism and the future of the European Union. When we are thinking and talking in this, we were thinking and talking in this research group for about 2 years about the future of the EU and its possible federalization as one of the next project, the next passes for Europe. The analysis and the prediction may be based on very different points of view. Now, today, I will try to project the conditions, the problems to be solved, and challenges of federalization to a very, very large historical background, which is not very detailed, as you see, and it focuses only on the major character of the centuries behind us. For about 200 years, the architecture of public or social power was influenced by the imperial heritage of Rome, even if its western part have been fallen at about the middle of this bimillennial epoch, from the Republican transformation of Rome until the Peace of Westphalia. Western imperial Rome was great, was very heterogeneous, different tribes, ethnicities, languages, religions, cultures were kept together. Thirdly, was liberal, in the sense that the most important imperial northern power and life did not cover everything. Only the most important behavior rules were general, the rest, and this rest covered practically the everyday life, was left to the local communities. Fourthly, this imperial heritage was non-nationalistic. The different local communities were not forced to accept a first class or a most precious nationality or tribe above them, neither were they melted into a single and uniform society. Instead of national, better saying ethnical, unity and interest, more general principles were compulsory. Laws, the empire itself, and its leader, later the emperor of course, religion, and some common values. Please remember this word, these values is why I am speaking about history. However, the role of religions and the role of regions and its people was different. Later, it was described by the central and peripheral dichotomy. The central regions and the population of central regions was predominant, had decided on general politics, peace or war, taxes, and generally applicable laws. And separation of public and spiritual authority, the magistrates, later the emperor, from one side, and from the other hand, the Pontifex Maximus were interdependent, but partly autonomous. So this was, I think, the most important part of this heritage, this double power, the power of soldiers, the public power in the hand of the emperor, and the spiritual power in the hand of the Pontifex Maximus. And I repeat, these two powers were interdependent. The Pontifex Maximus had to be accepted by the emperor, and the emperor had to be crowned later by the Pontifex Maximus, but they gathered some part, some stage of autonomy. This double, autonomous but interdependent power was kept even after the Christian transformation, not accidentally. The Roman imperial heritage gave the factual, social, and physical roots of the Christian church, but its other root, the spiritual one, the Jewish legacy, also accepted the double power of king and high priest. Thus, the Christian church took forward the whole previous architecture, The only change was the common religion. And even after the fall of the Western Roman Empire, the ideal of organizing public affairs remained the same. There were permanent attempts to re-establish the empire. Under Charlemagne, and later by the Holy Roman Empire, these attempts have been successful for a shorter or longer period. I think it is not an exaggeration to say that willingness to create an empire, it is one of the genetical determinations of Europe. In eastern part of Europe, where the imperial establishment was present for this whole period, is even more strong. This Roman heritage was broken finally by Westphalia. However, Westphalia itself was a consequence of a longer process started by the double and later triple papacy, when we had two popes, one in Rome, the other in Avignon. This started from 1378, where there reigned two popes in Rome and Avignon with two papal courts, separate boards of cardinals, and finally, and this was the most important problem, separate successors. Both popes had their own successors. The different European regions and monarchs accepted one of them or the other. It was ecclesiastical and social reality for some generations, what led to loss of confidence of the spiritual autonomy and spiritual authority of the Pope and the Church. How could have been the Pope the final authority if there are two popes, and later three? The uncertainty became ever worse when Emperor Sigismund of Luxembourg, also King of Hungary, tried to convince the two popes to renounce from their thrones and to elect one generally accepted new pope. The outcome was very ugly. Among Rome and Avignon, there appeared the third pope in Pisa. Of course, this, we can say, scandalous situation was solved by the emperor by forcing all the three popes to renounce and electing the wished, commonly accepted new pope. But this process had been approved by the Synod of Constance. The scandal was solved, but the broken architecture couldn't be restored, because the unity of papacy was reconstructed, but his spiritual authority was not the same and never became the same. How could it be when the peace within the church was established practically only by the emperor? The church, the spiritual authority equal to the emperor's, thus the double authority was lost. I'm afraid it was lost forever. The church became subordinated to the monarch. We all know what came after, Reformation, and as fulfillment, the Westphalia Peace, with cuius et regio, eius et religio, but not only, it wasn't only the problem of the churches, it was a problem of the society. All the churches, be it Reformed or Catholic or any other, was subordinated to the state power. Since then, the former double authority was forgotten, and this single authority of the sovereign was the essence of the new architecture. Many centuries came and gone, and the genetical willingness of Europe to create an empire was combined, so the heritage of Rome was combined with the long experience of personal, later institutional, and finally national sovereignty. Predominance of Westphalia came to a quite quick but bloody and with the end with the two world wars. With inventing the United Nations Organization, the Council of Europe, and the European communities, actually the European Union, is a special recombination of the past on stake. Formally, even today's sovereignty belongs to the states of Europe, as we listened from Professor Trocsányi. This is a continuity of Westphalia. The inter- and supranational institutions or systems of institutions are subject to international law. However, this institutional legal position does not entail sovereignty. But on the other hand, the inter- and supranational institutions have extended without limits their range of influence. This is explicit in the case of the European communities and its actual status as European Union. The guiding principle of ever closer union, the principle of particular, later general primacy of European law, the judicial practice that empties out the regulations of the treaty, starting the every competence that does not belong to the Union remains at the member states, records the imperial heritage of Rome. If it is concluded to a federation, we will realize all the imperial features: greatness, heterogeneity, liberal organization of everyday life, non-nationalistic raison d'etat, and some common values. What is missing is the good old double authority of public, state, and spiritual power. What worse, the spiritual authority is missing because there is no reminiscence of common spirituality in Europe. But we are Western people, we have in our memories that we need something over the mere physical power of the state. We need something to fill the space that remained after the forgotten common spirituality. And what we have? What could we invent? Nothing more than the legal and even more the normative notion of values. And list of extremely abstract values beginning with rule of law, which is very nice. We all believe in that, but it's very abstract. We don't feel in our fingers, we don't see, we don't listen. What does it mean, rule of law? At the first glance, it is a perfect substitution of spirituality. The values within Article 2 of the Treaty on European Union are common, are elevated, are abstract enough, are human, and we can continue the long list of laudatory adjectives. Almost everything is done. We will have a federation which reflects the good old imperial past, I just repeat, non-nationalistic and liberal. We may keep the member states with their relics, language, colors, anthem, coat of arms, what reflects Westphalia. Of course, this reflection does not contain sovereignty. But the sun is rising every day, even if a state is no longer sovereign. We will have an abstract cloud of values to make the remembrance of the past more realistic. But how can the spiritual authority be replaced? Or, in a more concrete manner, who decides on these values? And at this point we face a strong danger. The authority of values is the same authority of public power. The two former authorities, power of state and spiritual power, are united. We will have an empire with a single final authority. This is no longer Rome. There is no double authority with interdependence and partly autonomy. And this is no longer the system of Westphalia, where the equal sovereigns had the power to control each other. The new imperial order will combine what is more efficient in Rome and Westphalia. The only doubt is that an uncontrolled empire does not belong to the Roman heritage. This would be something else. We don't know what will be exactly, but we are afraid that it will be one of the worst combinations. Even it will be strong, it will be efficient, it will be uncontrolled. And the last, which I finish with a sign of question, perhaps it could be very frightening. Thank you very much for your attention.